Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm coming to you with a video about the top 19 books that I want to read in 2019. I love doing this video every single year. It's one of my favorite videos to film because essentially this video serves as a yearly TBR for me. As you all know, I don't like doing monthly TBRs. I never stick to them. I feel too much pressure when I have TBRs. I'm very, very moody when it comes to my reading, so I will just pick up a book whenever I feel like it. I can't set a list for myself and then go through it. It just doesn't work for me. But having this year-long list is actually kind of helpful for me because as the years go on, I actually tend to stick to it more and more, and it's been more helpful for me. And it also lets me set like a tone for kind of the books that I want to read throughout the year. It also just serves as a good reminder whenever I don't really know what book I want to read. I can always go back and watch this video and go through the list and pick one of them to read. So yeah, I love filming these videos, and I know you all really like watching them as well. So I'm really excited to be talking about all these books today. As I've mentioned in my previous videos like this one, I don't pick any of the books that I'm highly anticipating that are coming out this year. I've made an entirely separate video on all the books that I'm anticipating that come out in 2019. These are all books that I either own or I don't own yet, but I can get a copy of from the library or an ebook or something like that that I want to read. So it's usually from my own personal library, not stuff that's coming out this year. I like reading backlisted titles also, so that's why I'd like to go through this list. But I'm pretty sure all of these books, I think except for one of them that wasn't on my anticipated list that already came out this year, are all backlisted titles. So they came out in 2018 or before. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear before we dive into all of the books. But without any further ado, let's get into talking about the 19 books that I really want to read this year. First up on my list is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. As I'm sure most of you probably know because I've talked about it a lot recently, I recently read Madeline Miller's book Circe, which I fell completely in love with. It was like my second favorite book of the year or third favorite, I don't know, one of my all-time favorite books that I've ever read. It's so good. I adored that story. And ever since I read that book and I've been talking about it, so many people have been telling me that I have to read The Song of Achilles, her first book. So I am very excited to get around to this one because I have a feeling I'll really love it too. I don't really know anything about it other than it's a retelling of the Iliad. That's all I know. I don't know if it's a retelling or if it's just like kind of like Circe where it kind of has like the backstory for the characters. I don't really care. I just know that I love Greek mythology. I love Madeline Miller's writing, and I'm pretty sure I'm really gonna love this book too. So I definitely plan on getting to this one pretty soon in the year. Next up on my list is a book that I very much intended to read in 2018, but for a number of reasons I just didn't get around to it. But I have to read this in 2019. I just have to. And that book is, of course, none other than Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. As I'm sure most of you know, V.E. Schwab is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love everything she has ever written that I have ever read. And Vengeful, of course, is the sequel to Vicious, one of my favorite books by her, and this one came out last year. I went to her signing, I interviewed her for the second time, like it was such a great experience. I had a wonderful time there, but like I still haven't read the book. I think it's just because I treasure Victoria Schwab's books so much that when I don't have a lot of them left to read, I don't want to like read them immediately because I want to save them, but that doesn't make sense. Like I should just read them now and enjoy them. So I'm definitely planning on reading this one very soon in the year as well because I know that I'm gonna love this. Next on my list is actually another Victoria Schwab book. I'm trying to basically read all of her books. I guess that's kind of my goal. But these are the two that are on my list for this year besides her new ones that are coming out, and that of course is The Archived. The Archived is one of her very early books, and I know a lot of people on BookTube really love this series, but I also have some friends who really didn't like this book, so I feel like I've heard a lot of conflicting opinions, but I feel like I've heard a lot of conflicting opinions on her other books and I always ended up liking them, so I have a feeling I'm gonna love this one too. Like I just don't really have a doubt about enjoying her books. This one I actually have no idea what the story's about, and I kind of want to keep it that way because for the most part when it comes to Victoria Schwab's books, I've pretty much known what every single one has been about, but I don't know what this one is about at all, like genuinely at all. I don't even know what the characters' names are, like I know nothing. So I'm really excited to go into it and be totally surprised. The next two books on my list are also both by the same author. I read one of her books in 2018 and I fell in love with it completely, and now I want to go back and read her other books. And those books are I Was Born for This and Solitaire by Alice Oseman. As you all probably know, because it's another book I haven't stopped talking about recently, I read Radio Silence last year and I loved it. I loved love that book so much. I think it's one of the best YA contemporaries I've ever read, and ever since I read that book, I've wanted to read her other books, but I just haven't gotten copies of them yet, so I haven't been able to pick them up, and I have a very strong feeling that I will love these two as well. At least I was born for this, because I know a little bit about the summary of that one. Solitaire I know pretty much nothing about. All I really know about I Was Born for This is that the main protagonist is Persian, because I started reading like the first like 10 or 15 pages or something a while ago, and the main character is Persian, which is really exciting, and it's about like fan culture. I'm pretty sure the two main characters are super into like this boy band or something, and it's about like fandom and fandom culture, and I'm really excited to read that. But yeah, I'm really excited to read these books. I feel like they're just going to be two more contemporaries that I fall in love with, and I'm hoping to love them as much as Radio Silence. The next book on my list is a fantasy book that I've been wanting to read for a long time now, and it's been recommended to me nonstop, and that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is an adult high fantasy series. It's the first book in a series, and I don't know what it's about, which is a theme with a lot of these books, I know, but as you all know, I don't really like knowing too much about books before I go into them. All I know about this fantasy is what people have told me when they recommended it to me, and that's basically that it's very well crafted and it's a very diverse story with great representation. That's all I really know. I know it's won like a ton of awards. I've just heard nonstop fantastic things about it, and I have been in desperate need for some new good fantasy, because some of the fantasy I've been reading lately I have not been liking. One of them was actually N.K. Jemisin's other book, The Killing Moon. I didn't like that book at all, and it kind of made me want to not pick this one up for a little bit. But then I heard some people saying that the fifth season is very, very different from The Killing Moon, and her writing style is almost entirely different. So I'm still willing to give it a chance because I've heard such glowing reviews, and I'm hoping that it's a fantasy I end up really loving, because I've been craving a new fantasy so desperately, so I'm hoping that this one fills that void. Next up on my list is another fantasy that was actually really popular in 2018, but I just never got around to picking it up, and that book is The Poppy War. This is another adult fantasy that I've heard is very intense and very graphic and gruesome and violent, but everyone says that it's really, really wonderful. I don't think I've heard a single negative review of it. Granted, I haven't gone looking for reviews, so I don't really know if that's like accurate, if everyone really does love it as much as I see people loving it on Twitter. But again, this is another book that I really want to pick up because, like I said, with the fifth season, I'm really looking for a new fantasy, especially some more adult fantasy, because I want to get into reading more adult fantasy, because a lot of YA fantasies have been disappointing me lately. So again, I'm just looking for a new fantasy that can hopefully be a new favorite, and I'm hoping that this one might be one of them. I'm willing to give it a chance. The next book on my list is another one that came out in 2018 that I just never got around to reading, even though I fully intended to, and that is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahira Mafi. A Very Large Expanse of Sea follows this Muslim high school girl post 9/11 as she is just trying to navigate her world, and I've heard that it's wonderful, beautiful, heartbreaking, breathtaking, all the adjectives, and I've been wanting to read it for so long because I really want to read something by Tahira Mafi that isn't the Shatter Me series, because you guys know I don't really like that series, so I want to try something else by her, and I know that I'll enjoy this. Like, I have a very strong feeling that I will like it a lot. I just wasn't really in the mood for like a contemporary, I guess, recently, so that's why I haven't picked it up, and every time I've tried to start reading it, I just haven't felt like continuing, not because I didn't like it, but just because I haven't been in the mood for it. So I'm waiting for that mood, but hopefully it comes around soon, because I definitely do want to get to this one before the end of the year. The next book on my list is actually the third book in a series that I just have not finished reading yet, and I desperately want to finish it this year because I need to. I love this series and I need to finish it, and that is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, the third book in the Mistborn trilogy. The Mistborn trilogy is now actually longer than a trilogy. I'm pretty sure there are like 2 more series or something. I'm not exactly positive. But in the original trilogy, The Hero of Ages is the last book, and I've read the first 2. I love them. I love that fantasy world so much, and I really need to finish the series. I just never did. I read the first 2 books, I want to say 2 years ago, and I just didn't pick up the last one, and I don't know why. So this year I definitely want to do that. I may have to reread the first 2, but that's okay. This is also a year of rereading books for me, so I'm fine with that. If you don't know about this fantasy series, it basically takes place in this world where people have magical abilities. Certain people have magical abilities based off of different metals. So people can have control over like certain metals, and there are very few people, they're very rare, who have the ability to control all 12 metals in this world. I think it's 12. It's been a long time since I've read them. And it takes place in a world where this Lord Ruler has basically taken power. So the bad guy has taken power and everyone else is trying to kind of overthrow him. And I love it. It's so political. It's like everything I like in fantasy. And yeah, I really just need to finish this trilogy. Speaking of trilogies that I need to complete, another book that is on my list of books that I need to read this year is Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the third book in the Grisha trilogy, as I'm sure all of you know, and I still haven't read it. I think I read Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm 2.5 years ago, like really a long time ago, and I just never read Ruin and Rising, and I don't know why. I 100% have to reread the entire trilogy because I don't remember anything that happens. As you all know, the Six of Crows duology is like one of my favorite series ever, if not like my favorite series. I can't say, I can never decide, but definitely one of my favorites out there, and Crooked Kingdom is in my top 5 favorite books of all time. So yeah, I really need to finish that trilogy, especially before I read King of Scars, Leigh Bardugo's new book. So yeah, I really need to catch up on that and finish that one finally, like 2.5 years later. Next up on my list is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for a really long time now. All I know about this book is that it follows these people who are part of like a Shakespeare company, so they perform Shakespeare. It takes place like 10 years after that, I think, when one of the people who was part of this group just gets out of jail, and it just sounds really fascinating to me. A lot of people have compared this to The Secret History, which I read last year and really loved. So I feel like I'm really gonna like this one too. I love Shakespeare. I love reading Shakespeare and I love reading things about Shakespeare. So I really think that I'll enjoy this one too. And I'm really hoping it's a fun, suspenseful, mysterious story. Speaking of mysterious stories, another book that I really want to read that I actually think was on my list of like top 16 books for 2016 or something, like one of these videos from a long time ago. And that book is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. So this past year, I really got into reading more mysteries and thrillers and like suspenseful books. And that's something that I'm still wanting some more of because I read some disappointing ones last year, but I also read some amazing ones. And I have a feeling that Night Film will be an amazing one for me. I don't know much about the actual like mystery of it because I don't like going into mysteries knowing anything because I think it's better that way. But I do know, because I do own a copy of the book, that inside of it, it has like photographs and emails and text messages and like things like that, like different mediums that you can like read through as well, apart from just the actual text of the story. I've heard that it's very spooky. I think this one might also be somewhat paranormal, or at least there's a paranormal aspect to the mystery, but I know that it's gotten so many raving reviews from a lot of people who I do trust. So hopefully I will also really like it and it will be a mystery that I can add to my list of favorites. The next book on my list is one that I've been wanting to read actually for some time because it was recommended to me after I read The Shadow of the Wind, and I've heard people say that it has like some similarities, and that book is The City of Dreaming Books. The title alone reminds me of Shadow of the Wind because of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books in Shadow of the Wind, and then also The City of Dreaming Books. They sound similar to me. But this book's been recommended to me by one of my close friends, and he told me that he thinks that I would really like it. I don't want to know too much about it. I have heard of it before and I did want to read it before he even recommended it to me, but he has told me that he thinks that I would really enjoy it, so I'm taking his recommendation. I know that this book is translated from German, and I have been wanting to read some more translated books as well, so that's another reason that I really want to read this one. But yeah, I'm just really craving another Shadow of the Wind type of book that's completely immersive, that feels magical even if it isn't magical, so I'm hoping that this book ends up being one of those for me. The next book on my list is actually another book that the same friend recommended to me, and that is All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. I actually do own a copy of this book and it is one that I wanted to read, so when he told me that I should read it again, I was like, okay, I'll take your recommendation because you seem to know what I like. This book has basically been described to me as sci-fi meets fantasy, so it's kind of like a combination of those two things, and as someone who isn't super into sci-fi but definitely does want to try reading some more of it, I think that this will be a perfect book for me to get started with. I've also just heard that Charlie Jane Anders is a fantastic author and writer, so I really do want to read some of her books. Again, I'm just looking for something else that's magical and whimsical, and I've been wanting to read more adult lately, so I think that this will be a perfect book for me to read, and hopefully it ends up becoming another favorite. The next book on my list is the one that actually came out this year that I didn't include on my most anticipated list because I didn't think I was going to read this book, but then everyone started talking about it and now the hype is kind of getting to me. Also, then I found out about the summary and I was like, this sounds like exactly like something I'd like, so I have to read it. And that book is The Gilded Wolves by by Roshni Chokshi. So all I know about this is that it takes place in the 1800s in Paris, and it's a mystery where they have to like solve some sort of puzzle or something, and there's angst and romance. And if that isn't everything that I love in a book, I don't know what is. I've just been hearing so many people talk about this book, especially on Twitter and Instagram, and everyone's been loving it. And so I really, really want to try it out, and I'm really hoping to love it too. Again, like I said, I've been looking for some more fantasy, and I'm hoping that this is a YA fantasy that I end up really loving. And I'm pretty sure it's the first book in a series, so that'll be great. I'll be left on some terrible cliffhanger and have to wait 2 years for another book, but I love pain, so it's fine. The next book on my list is one that I've been wanting to read for a really long time, and I just haven't gotten around to it because it came out in like 2016, 15, I don't know, a long time ago. But that book is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I know that this is like a lot of people's favorite book of all time, and I've had it recommended to me countless times, and I really want to read Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng as well, but I really just wanted to read Everything I Never Told You before I got to that one because the summary of this one interests me a bit more. I don't know much about it other than it takes place in the 70s, and we follow around this mixed-raced family who is suddenly struck by grief. I think somebody in the family dies or something, I don't want to know, but I've heard that it's a really, really beautiful story about grief and death. So I am very excited to read this. I have a feeling I will really, really enjoy it. I've been getting way more into adult contemporary and just literary fiction in general. I'm hoping that this one is another one that I end up really loving, and hopefully if I love this, I'll also get around to reading Little Fires Everywhere and hopefully like that one too. The next book on my list is one that I've heard countless people on BookTube talking about this past year, and I think in 2017 too, because I think it came out in 2017, but that book is none other than Renegades by Marissa Meyer. So all I really know about Renegades is that it's about people with superpowers. That's all I really gotta know because that is what hooked me on it. I also haven't read anything else by Marissa Meyer, and I know so many people always tell me to read the Lunar Chronicles, but I don't think I will read them because I just don't think I'll like them. I don't think they're for me, and I don't think I would like Heartless that much either, so I haven't picked those up, but this story does actually somewhat interest me, and I just really want a new YA series to fall in love with because it's been some time since I found a good one that I really liked. So hopefully this one can end up being that for me, and I'm really hoping to fall in love with it. The next book on my list is another book that came out in 2018 that I just never got around to reading because I just put everything off apparently, but that book is Pride by Evie Zaboy. This book is a Pride and Prejudice retelling that takes place in Brooklyn and follows around our main character, who I believe is Afro-Latino. It's about like her heritage and her roots. Obviously a lot of Pride and Prejudice is about family, so it just seems like a really, really cool retelling of the story, and I'm very excited to read this book. I'm not always super into retellings of like fairy tales, but I do like retellings of like classic novels. I think those can always be fun, so I'm way more into those types of retellings than fairy tale retellings, so I think that this will be one that I actually really enjoy. And speaking of retellings of classic novels, the very last book on my top 19 books I want to read in 2019 list is another one that has been on previous lists. I'm pretty sure it has, or at least it's been on several TBRs because I've been meaning to read this book for 3+ years and I still haven't. And that book is Jane Steele by Lindsay Fay, which is essentially a reimagining of Jane Eyre, except this time Jane is a serial killer. This book sounds like everything I would love, like truly everything I would love, and I've really been wanting to read it for so long, and I don't know why I just keep putting it off and putting it off, but this is the year of not putting off books that I really want to read. I'm gonna pick up what I feel like reading when I feel like reading it and not put them off anymore. I'm saying it right here and right now, hold me to that. I have to read this book this year. If I don't know what you can do to me, but like, hold me accountable, please. Like a retelling of Jane Eyre, except she's a serial killer who only kills men who have wronged women. Like, that sounds awesome, so awesome, and I really, really think I'm gonna absolutely love this book, so it's just a matter of me finally picking it up. But there you all have it. That is it for my list of top 19 books that I want to read in 2019. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your top 3 books that you really want to read in 2019? Are any of them the same as any of the books on my list? I would love to hear any of your thoughts down below. Also, please let me know if you would like me to film a reading vlog for any of these books, kind of like my Queen of Air and Darkness reading vlog, where it's a vlog/review, because I've been wanting to do some more of those, and maybe I'll do it for some of the books that are on this list. I don't know. If you'd like to see that, please do let me know though. But if you would like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a wonderful reading year, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!